Hello, welcome to Weird Wonderful Wonders. I'm here today with a wonderful lady called Lorraine Wilson, and she's going to talk about some of her amazing experiences. Lorraine is a magical awakening practitioner and an author, and she's a multiple experiencer of fairies and other elementals. So welcome, Lorraine, to Weird Wonderful Wonders, and thank you for sharing this time with me to talk about your experiences.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really, really grateful to be able to talk about a subject I love, because I could bore everyone silly about it. So if I am boring you, just tell me
No,
to calm down.
I love it. I love hearing about this kind of thing because we've been chatting already, haven't we, for
Yeah.
a couple of months
Yeah.
online, and yeah, there's so much to talk about. So, but I thought perhaps talk about a little bit about you and where you live, and then just go from there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I live in an area of the south of France that isn't very well known. It's in the foothills of the Pyrenees. It's very rural. It's an amazing area. There are underground lakes and rivers, so many caves. It's just an amazing place, and there's so many forests. You can go and wander and not see another person for the whole day, and it's just a beautiful place. And it's also the kind of place that calls spiritual people. There are lots of artists, creative people, writers, or people who just feel called to come and live here for some reason. It's just been an area that's always drawn people with an interest in the spirit and the other world. There are certainly loads of legends in the mountains about how it's a place where the veil between the worlds are thinnest. And so many people, very credible people like mountain guides, have had amazing experiences of seeing things, hearing things. And a friend of mine has been in the mountains, and she said she's seen one day a cave was there and the next day it wasn't there. So it's almost like it's a place where things shift and timelines shift, and it's a really fascinating area. So
That really speaks to me just because of an episode I've just released, where the person I was interviewing, a lady called Pat, was living in Colorado in the Rocky Mountains, and she had an encounter there. So there's something about mountains being liminal places, and there's loads of accounts
I think so.
worldwide. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still talk here about it being the old religion being of the land. It's of the mountains, the forests, the streams, of the beings who inhabit it, who we're partners with. You know, there is still that current underrunning all the modern age. Everything else that has come in has never completely quashed those beliefs in people. And it's hard to find a village or a fountain or something that doesn't have a legend attached to it. It's a pretty magical place. And I'd say it's after I moved here that although I've always been very open spiritually, and I've used things like light language since I was 16, it was since I moved here that I had like a real spiritual awakening. And I suddenly realized just how much there was for me to connect to, and how many divine light beings there were who wanted to connect with me, and just how much more there was that I hadn't been seeing. It was like I'd been sleepwalking through life, and then coming here, it's like I suddenly woke up.
Wow. And yeah, I want to go back to what you were just saying about when you were 16 and the light language, because there's a couple of things there. What initiated you using light language, and what light language is, because not everyone listening will know what light language is.
I mean, light language is basically it's spiritual language. It bypasses your mind. There are lots of different types. I believe you have your own light language, which is, I think, is heart-centered. But you can also channel light language, which I do as well, which can either be from fairies channel light language, or you get angelic light language, ancient languages, galactic languages. There are so many, and so many beautiful dialects. But it's a wonderful, wonderful way to connect to spirit, and it's a beautiful experience. And in particular, I love singing light language. I've never felt more free. And I'll come on to it later, but I think it's been the main reason how I've connected to the Fae in my garden. But as to how it happened to me, there was a South American missionary had come to my area of Surrey, an unusual place to think to be activated, but he placed his hands on my head to ask for healing, for I had something wrong with my knee. And I just felt like I was filled with this amazing, amazing energy. I opened my mouth to say thank you, and instead another language came out. And ever since then, I've been able to just use it at will. I can, anytime I want, I can open my mouth and I can express myself. But it's taken only really until recent years that I've realized how it can be used to help heal other people, how there can be frequencies and codes in it that will help activate other people, how it can be used to channel healing. There's so much more to it than I realized. I thought it was just my spirit's way of communicating with spirit, God, source, whatever people want to call, you know, whatever it is that we believe in, that we know is love, that's bigger than us.
So tell me a little bit about your healing work, and then we'll come on to how you use it, how you've discovered you can use it with connecting with the fairies.
Okay.
And
well, I had a severe car accident, I think it's about 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had brain injuries and spinal injuries. And basically the doctor said, no, you're never going to get better. That was it, after 3 years of intensive therapy. And I also developed a spinal condition, which accelerated because of the accident. And that, they said, it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and you're going to be in a wheelchair, which basically they said I'd be in a wheelchair by now, but I'm not. And I just wasn't prepared to accept that. I mean, one of the reasons I wasn't was I was an aspiring writer at the time, and before the accident, I'd had an agreement with the publisher that they wanted my manuscript. And after the accident, and my neurosurgeon said to me, no, you will never be able to write a book. You're just not able. You're not able to do it. I couldn't use computers without getting blinding migraines. I couldn't write. I couldn't read. I had acquired dyslexia, which I wasn't dyslexic before the accident, but I had this really brilliant support worker who made me learn speech to text software. And I had a lot of help. And I've now just published my 13th book, I think, with HarperCollins. So it just goes to show, don't accept it when you're told you can't do something. Yes. You never know what's possible.
I'm a big believer in that. That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
I'm just, to go from bad prognosis to having 13 books written.
Yeah. And I won't say it wasn't difficult at times, and occasionally it is still hard. I'm not completely free of symptoms, but I manage my life perfectly well, and it's a lot better than the prognosis I was painted. And it grew my interest in learning about energy work. And I think it was mostly during lockdown, because there were so many people, teachers, who were going online because they couldn't teach any other way. And I learned quite a lot of the basics about energy healing, but I felt called to magical awakening. And at the time, there was this part of me that rebelled. It said, I can't do something with the word magic in. No one will take me seriously, ever. I mean, this is the condition that we've been given, that the word magic must mean that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was called to it, so I did it. And I'm so glad I did, because I almost feel like those years of training were like preparation, because I feel like there's been an upsurge in magical awakening and the amount of elemental beings and fairies who want to talk to us. And I've already activated lots of people. It's like magical awakening. I call her because it's like she's an entity, and she gives me tasks to do. And sometimes she'll give me a message and say, right, you need to email so-and-so and tell her this message. And there was one which I know the person won't mind me saying, I won't say her name, but I was told to send her a message to say, don't worry, the whales and the dolphins forgive you. And I thought, okay, this will be the last time I ever hear from this person. And I emailed her, and it turned out it was brilliant because she'd been a marine biologist, and she'd always felt bad about the lives of the whales and the dolphins that she'd colluded in killing. And so I did more and more steps like this. And then I got, okay, you've got to contact so and so and offer them a free magical awakening session. And I would do that. And they, all of a sudden, everyone around me started having experiences seeing fairies. So in the magical awakening sessions, I mean, basically, I work with the elements. It's almost like a Celtic shamanism. It's very much rooted in the earth, but it's also rooted in the elemental beings who are part of the earth, who are who want to be partners with us. That's what the message they've been giving me, that they want to work with us. And they've been almost driven into hiding by, there was so much oppression. Anyone who believed in it was castigated. Fairies are blamed for, if crops were ruined, all kinds of things. But there's been such a change in the last couple of years. It's like a real sense that magic is awakening, magic is awakening. I keep getting that coming up through the earth. And I feel like one of my roles is, when I'm using magical awakening sessions for the right person, it seems to awaken them. And I've had friends who've had experiences of fairies laying flowers on them, kissing them. And I've had people who would never have believed in a million years that a fairy existed saying, I started seeing fairies. Is this normal? And saying, yeah, it's perfectly normal, don't worry. So it's an amazing healing modality because you're working in partnership with the earth, you're working in partnership with the elements. I see the elements as having consciousness as well. So I work with earth, fire, water, and air, and I work with the elemental beings, and we work as partners. And it's very intuitive. And you'll often hear an instruction. I mean, they're basic magical awakening tools, but I very much go with the flow that sometimes someone will tell me what they want healing with, and I'll send them healing. And then suddenly I think, actually, no, I really need to send healing to their stomach. And then afterwards they say, oh, I had this really funny burning thing in my stomach, and my cesarean scar, it's like it's completely healed up. And they hadn't told me anything about that beforehand. So it's just wonderful to be able to give back. I started out, I think, like a lot of fledgling healers, wanting to learn healing because they were sick of being sick. But once you do know how to do it, you want to help other people in any way you can. And I absolutely love using it. And I have to say, every time I do a session, I feel completely energized afterwards. It's just wonderful. It's like remembering I'm not a separate being. We are parts of the world around us.
That's been my experience with healing as well. So I trained in Reiki and also something called Rahani healing. But I've used that for myself. But I had a session with you, a magical healing session with you, and it was amazing, and the information that came through for me that you gave me was incredible and really fitted with where I was at that time. So I can highly recommend to people what you do, because it is very transformational. So thank you for sharing that. I was really now wanting to move on to the elementals that you've been connecting with, and I'm just wondering whether that has happened just since you've been where you are now in the south of France, or did it happen in the UK, or has it just sort of intensified?
I think it's only really happened since I've moved to this area. Yes, I think so. I think if I was connecting before, it wasn't conscious, so I didn't know who or what I was connecting to. I've always loved being in nature. I lived in London for a brief time, and every weekend I used to escape to the countryside because I just wanted to be surrounded by nature. So I'm where I'm happiest. But I think it was also with magical awakening, because I was connecting with the elements. I was becoming more and more conscious, of everything around me. And I started earthing a lot, walking barefoot on the earth, connecting to Gaia. And, and past the magical awakening is you connect to trees, you connect to plants. And I was just aware, like I was sending energy to a tree and I was getting energy back, or I was getting messages back. But I suppose the biggest change for me happened maybe a year ago, possibly a little bit more. But I was going through a really, really difficult time in my life where I'd lost pretty much everyone who was close to me. And I live in a very isolated community. I still can't drive because of the brain injury. I'm not allowed to. So I was stuck and I felt like I'd lost everyone, and everyone around me was being diagnosed with terminal cancer. And it was just a really difficult time. I've never felt more alone. And I used to walk in the garden and I used to sing light language and I used to sing to the trees. And then one day, all these amazing rainbows and lights started appearing in front of me. And I was like, oh my goodness, what's this? And I got out my camera and I thought, I don't know if this is even going to take pictures of it. I'm just going to keep taking pictures. So I did. I just got out my phone and kept taking photos. And I think now I've got about 1,000 photos of really amazing, beautiful light beings. I'd have rainbows appear right in front of me almost instantly. Some days I had some really bad news, so I went down to the garden and I said, I'd really like to see you. And this rainbow appeared right in front of my face. And I've had so many rainbows appear. Like even yesterday evening, we're in the middle of a drought. There was no water around anywhere, and there were loads of rainbows everywhere. But also, some fairies have appeared who have started communicating with me. It took them a while to get to know me. At first, I just saw them, and I didn't really know much about classification of fairies. And in a way, I've only learnt what I've learnt from what they've told me. So you're the expert, so I'm just sharing what they've told me about them. But
I'm still learning.
okay,
I don't know everything.
So first of all, there was this emerald green orb who appeared, and he kept appearing. And one day he followed me into my house, and I didn't feel nervous about it. I just thought it's okay. And he actually expanded, so it's about a foot wide, maybe. And I said, "Oh, who are you?" And he said, "I'm friendly." And that was it. And I said, "Okay, hello, friendly." And he vanished. And we kept this up for a while. And in the end, he said his name is actually Finn, but he liked me calling him friendly, so he just kept the joke going. So it was a bit of a sense of a humour thing. But he told me he was a fairy of the air. He said that the fairies classify themselves according to the elements. So the fairies of the air, of the water, of the earth, or the fire. So I've only got his word for it. So that's just what he told me. And he was joined by a friend, a sort of royal blue friend, who is called Maeve, although at first she was shyer and she wasn't sure about him telling me her name, and said, "No, don't tell her that, and you must tell her I'm not the queen. I'm not the queen of the fairies." So I called him Friendly Finn, and I call her maybe Maeve. So it's just a little joke. But they come on walks with me. Like I'm out with the dogs and I'll see the dogs looking at something. This is often how I find the light beings, because the dogs will be looking, what's he looking at? And I'll look down and there'll be an orb. Or I've had newer things recently. I've had like golden beings almost of fire, which I haven't had before. Yeah, quite a few new things have appeared. But so sometimes I'll go down to the garden and I'll literally say, they've got a beautiful rose bush that had grown up and the roses had grafted into my olive tree. So I thought that's lovely symbolism, love and forgiveness.
Yes.
And then this double rainbow appeared on top of the roses in the olive tree. And I thought, wow, that's love, forgiveness, and hope all together. And it was such a beautiful message. And it stayed for ages. It let me take loads of photographs. There were loads of Blu-rays going on. And sometimes I actually say to them, "Would you like to come out so I can take photos of you?" And they say, "Oh yeah, okay." It's really funny.
Sounds really, and I've seen your amazing photos as well. They're incredible. And the feeling I get from those photos is, it's like you say, it's a very joyful, light energy,
Definitely.
very sort of
Definitely.
childlike.
Yeah. It's playful.
And it's interesting to me as well that they've chosen to show themselves in this light form, because there's a lot in fairy folklore about fairies appearing as orbs sometimes. Where I live on Dartmoor, the stories of the pixies and showing themselves as what they call, will-o'-the-wisp, little lights.
Yeah.
Or sometimes appearing as actual beings. So they have this ability to shapeshift. And I wonder if you've ever got sort of a psychic impression of what they look like in their actual form, or whether you've seen them in a sort of more humanoid or other form.
I have. I mean, initially, I used to call them my flying fairy lights because that was just what they looked like, little fairy lights flying around.
Yeah.
But I mean, before in meditation, I'd connected with elemental beings, but I'd always seen them in my mind's eye. But sometimes now when I'm out and about, I'm actually seeing faces, and I often get this curtain of light in the garden, which is odd because it's completely clear day and there's this thick curtain. And within the curtain, I see actual forms. Like I saw a lion's face, and there's another one in which I saw a woman very clearly. And there was one occasion where I was dealing with somebody who was being, they say, not particularly nice to me, and the fairies actually turned up in the room, and in my mind's eye, I saw them exactly as they were in their proper form, and they were sticking their fingers in their ears, waggling their tongues, and some of them were blowing raspberries to make me laugh. And they were literally saying, "Don't listen to a word he's saying. It's a load of rubbish." And sucks to you. it was so funny. It literally, and a very traumatic time, it actually made me laugh. And they often do that. They tell me jokes,
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, there's so much I could say about that, because I've had a similar experience of that, where going through, tricky situation with someone, and then, like you say, actually seeing the fairies going,
yeah. They
and
really, I think their energy is so full of joy. It just really lifts it, doesn't it?
It
But I think
does.
I really felt like it was a time when I was very alone, that they wanted me to know I wasn't alone, that there was so much around me, that my garden, my home was completely stuffed full. It sounds an awful expression, but stuffed full of light beings. And I feel like it is because, with using Magical Awakening, I bless and put protections on my home every day. I invite in every elemental being who would like to be there as a place of haven and safety, and a place where only light can exist. And I had this image the other day, and I was walking in the woods, and I was thinking about this interview, and I was thinking about how.
Oh, just a minute. The sound stopped for some reason. Don't know why. Strange. Come back. Is your sound okay?
Hi. Can you
Great.
hear
I can
me?
hear you now.
Great. Yeah.
That was strange. Just as you started
It was.
talking. Yeah.
I would say it was really strange because it was just as I was about to deliver the message that the fairies had given me in the woods the other evening. It
Yeah.
suddenly cut out. Like some kind of interference. But anyway, so yeah, just to recap, I was walking in the woods, and I was talking to the fairies, and I was asking about what they would want me to say in the interview, if there's something, the message they wanted to give. And I was being reminded of the film The Truman Show. Do you remember The Truman Show?
Yeah. One of my
Yeah.
favorite films, actually. Yeah.
Okay. And it was basically saying that so many humans are in a Truman Show-like construct where they don't question, they believe everything they're presented with, and questioning or being different is seen as being wrong. And it was basically saying there is so much out there that we need more of us to say, question things, and say, well, hang on a minute, look at that. What about that? It needs more of us to be breaking up through the ceiling and discovering just what an incredible universe we live in. And also what incredible, beautiful, loving beings there are just a hair's width, and just in the next dimension, literally beside us, beings who love us, who want to help us, support us, work with us. And I think that with the changes that are happening in the world, I think that they want to work with us to help build a better world. I know that sounds like a cliche, but that is what they told me. They want us to work with them as partners, and they have so much love for us. And the other thing that I was reminded to say was that I do think that if you want to connect with the fairies, that music, it doesn't have to be singing in tongues. It can be any kind of singing, any kind of music. They love it. I think it's a great way to connect with them. If you're be outside, be where they are, and sing. Or doesn't matter if you don't think you're a singer. We're all singers. We just judge ourselves, but everybody's a singer.
Yes.
And our voices have incredible power. So don't worry what you sound like. And the fairies love being sung to, and they love music. So I know you use your heart, don't you?
Yes.
And it's a brilliant way to connect with them.
I firmly believe that from my experience too, and what I've heard of other people's experiences, that we're all vibration, aren't we? So if we can lift our vibration by making beautiful sounds or listening to beautiful sounds, then we're becoming more of a vibrational match. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and I've heard of, I mean, sometimes when I go out into nature, I'll sing to a place if I think, well, this place could do with a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Perhaps something's gone on there that's not been great, some event, and singing to the place can help raise that vibration, can't it, as well?
It can. Definitely. I think there were some woods near us, supermarkets in town. I mean, it is really in the middle of nowhere. It's not like a bad town, but sometimes you do get teenagers going down there and possibly doing drugs and things. But whenever I go there, I always send clearing to the trees and to the river, and I sing to the trees. And that was where they gave me this message, interestingly enough. But yeah, no, I think there are so many ways to connect, and all you've got to do is be open to connect, believe that you can, know that you can, because they love us, they want to connect with us. I don't know if it's just my experience, but for me, they seemed a little shy initially, that they would only show themselves but not talk to me. And it just took one of them to start talking to me. I think maybe it's 4 or 5 months after starting seeing the things, they started talking to me. But now I can have whole communications. So I was going to say, I was sending love to my rose bush yesterday evening, and I was sending it a blessing, and I got the question, what would you like in return? And I thought, oh, actually, all I want is for all of the elemental beings to be happy and safe and content in my garden. That's all I want. And as I say, I got an amazing light show, so I think they were happy with that. It's like 180 odd photographs of just amazing things,
And yes, so coming back to the area you're in, because that fascinates me, that our interaction with the landscape and how some places can be more liminal, a bit like we were saying about the mountains, and you're in the foothills of the Pyrenees, aren't
you? The Pyrenees, yes, I
am. Excuse me, and you've said that there are lots of amazing caves in the area, and so do you feel that it's something to do with the earth where you are, that there's some kind of perhaps a portal, or it's a bit more of a liminal space, or
well, there's definitely something different about my garden, because at the moment everybody's gardens are parched earth and dust, and mine is still really very green. And some people have said, oh, so funnily enough, a friend of mine who is very logical, very practical, I would not believe in fairies. he said, perhaps you've got a fairy spring under your garden.
Yeah.
He said it jokingly, but I think there must be an underground source of water of some kind. But
Mm-hmm.
interestingly enough, I
Yeah.
sent him lots of photos, and even he said there is just no way to explain why all these things have been appearing in the last year so many different ways. It defies logic. You can talk about refraction and whatever you like, but he certainly knows I haven't got the technical know-how to fake photos. I really haven't. These are
Well,
the genuine thing. So
I know because we had a lot of problems with internet
trouble
connection,
sending
didn't we?
photos. Yeah, I haven't got the internet
And
to do it. Trust me.
so it's not like you're there,
I am not at all. And he said it just defies belief that things could appear in so many different ways and it not have something unknown behind it. There must be things that we don't know. Like for a while inside, I used to get I got a symbol of a 5-pointed star surrounded by rainbows. I don't know if you remember seeing that
Yes, I saw
photograph.
that. I was looking at it
And
this morning.
I only ever got that
Wow.
photograph on my skin. I got it loads and loads of times.
Mm.
And funnily enough, because I meditate with a group of friends, at the time there were only 3 of us. And since there have become 5 of us, I've stopped getting the symbol. It was almost
Oh,
like it was saying, there are
yes.
5 of you to join in this group. But I only ever got that symbol inside. And as you can see, I always have my shutters shut to keep all the
Yeah.
heat out. There's no sun in here. There's no water in
Mm.
here. I wasn't wearing jewelry. I didn't have my phone. There was nothing for it to reflect off. It was just pure, amazing, unexplainable and wonderful, you know.
Light energy of some, yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, because I've had that where I've seen symbols and it's almost like they've got a way. It's almost like they've tested you. Thought, what? How is she going to understand us? So they found that way
Yes.
of communicating through the
Yes.
visual
Yeah.
symbols, and
Well,
then
interestingly,
the
sorry, I was
sound.
going to say
Yeah.
everyone else in the group was also getting not they didn't get the same symbol on their skin, but they were getting symbols in meditation of like 5-pointed stars. It's like every single one of us had been getting um,
Gosh.
the same symbol. And the joint meditations we do, they are beautiful. Like we send energy to each other. They're just gorgeous. It's just amazing how you connect to anyone, anywhere across the planet. There is no
Yes.
distance.
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm really interested in consciousness and how powerful we are. And a lot of that has obviously been dampened down by the
Yeah.
powers that be because they don't want us
Yes.
to know how powerful we are. But people,
Yeah.
ancient times, knew this, didn't they? Going back to the ancient
Yeah, I do.
before.
And I think a lot of us have fear to deal with. We've got maybe fear from past lives where we've been, persecuted. We've got fear of coming out and saying, yes, I believe in fairies. I mean, to do that, you've got to have some kind of bravery. But I've got to the point in my life where I can say, I believe in fairies, I believe in dragons, I talk to them, I love them, and I don't care what anyone thinks of me because
No.
they are wonderful. They're my
Yeah.
friends.
Yes.
So
Oh,
but I've
that's
just realised
wonderful.
I didn't really answer your question properly. That
Oh,
as in terms of why I'm getting so many manifestations, I think I actually asked them your question, say,
yes.
what is it? And they said it's a mixture of the area you live in and the fact that you practice magical awakening and you've
Mm,
put all these structures in place and you've invited us in and you sing to us. And they said there's something about you where you have connection to the fairies, like
mhm.
the fairies have often called me cousin, and I've never known why, but there's some kind of link there that's not fully explored or fully known yet. So
Mm.
they've told me it's a combination of all 3: the place, the magical awakening, and something specific to do with me. But that doesn't mean that no
Yes.
one else can have the experiences. They've just said that's why you're getting so many. So
Yeah. And
um,
that interests me as well, why some people have certain levels of experience than
yeah,
others. So some people might not believe in fairies at all, but then have a very sudden encounter with seeing one.
mm-hmm.
the blue. I've heard of, I've spoken to people where that's happened. It's like, oh, and suddenly they understand what it's about. And then there's people like, I suppose, like you and me, that have always been interested in otherworldly things or
Yeah,
interested in supernatural and followed a path of healing and have experiences that way. Um, so yeah, so it's interesting that, like you say, it's like a combination of factors. And I'm
yeah,
going back to what you said a little while ago about you've created this sort of safe haven for them.
yeah. That's what I call it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm wondering whether that's something that you've learnt for yourself as well, whether you feel like you've created your own sort of safe space and they're sort of thinking, well, this person knows
I
what
think
they're
so.
doing. We want to work with them because they know all
Yeah.
about, they're learning about creating safe
And
space.
working with the elements and
Yeah.
yeah, and I think so. And part of magical awakening is learning to bless the land. That's one of the main things. One of the main things, yeah, it is actually, it's to work with the land, to work with earth, it's to send healing um, to parts of the earth that need it, it's to send healing to trees. So it was just something I was doing naturally anyway. And then I had in mind, well, yes, I want this to be a haven. And I suppose I've had times in my life when I haven't been safe. So making it a space where I knew that I was surrounded by love and by loving beings.
Mm.
Yes, of course, that's precious to me. Interesting enough, yesterday evening after I'd had this amazing light show, I walked back up the garden and I came across two white feathers that hadn't been there when I'd walked down the garden. And I heard this voice in my
Yeah.
head that said, pick them up. And it said, go and put one on each of your windowsills. So behind me, there's a white feather on that windowsill, and on the other windowsill in the front of my house. It's like, I've learned to love now, not to question, not to bother about why, because nearly
Yes.
always there's a good reason. So I listen to them because I trust them. So
Yes. Like you say, and then it might not make sense to us at the time, but then something
yeah,
might happen down the line. You think,
yes,
oh, that's
yeah,
why, yeah, the
yeah,
synchronicity occurs or something.
yes. I think there's so
Yeah.
much knowledge. You've barely scratched the surface of it.
Mm, mm. Um, just going back to sort of seeing these fairies when you saw them in your house, sort of
Yeah,
psychically, if you like.
yeah.
What sort of size were they? I mean, do you see them as little? Some people see them as like little beings. Some people see them as huge, like adult
Let me think.
human
They
size.
were these ones. They were about knee height.
Yeah. Okay.
There were, I think, about five of them, mixture of male and female. I've only really got a vague impression of the faces, and I don't know what they were wearing, but they were just very clear to me. I mean, normally I've always been very clairsentient. I've always picked up on feelings. So I've
Mm.
felt the presence of beings, but it's only recently that I've started actually seeing things as well. So I think my I felt them and I saw what's the bare sketch of them, if that makes sense. So
Yes,
not the full painting, like the
yeah.
sketch that you would do of the fairies before you fill it in, you know.
Yes, I understand. So just enough
Yeah.
information to know that they were there. And that's interesting. There
Yeah.
was five when you've had that star symbol
Yeah,
come
I hadn't even thought of that. Yes,
and the
that's
five
true.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, quite an
that is
interesting
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
coincidence.
Mm.
And you mentioned your little dogs that are obviously, I mean, animals are so sensitive to otherworldly
Yeah.
things like cats and
Oh,
dogs.
they absolutely love
Yeah,
playing with the fairies. I mean, I think I sent you one photo last night of Peanut where she's
yeah.
chasing Finn, the green air fairy. And there's
Mhm.
another one where there was a rainbow, and my dog Noisette kept trying to dig up the end, and they kept moving
Mhm.
the end of the rainbow. And it was just funny. They were just having fun.
Oh,
They
that's
all enjoyed it.
such sweet little dogs as well. And
Yeah,
yeah, you sent me that photo of one of your little dogs trying to dig up
yeah.
the rainbow.
But often I've had things where there's photos that I just missed initially, but where I've seen my dog look at something. So you know how you can go through frame by frame if you've got an iPhone. So I
Yes.
went through frame by frame, and just for one frame, there was this golden fire, sort of fire light being that he was looking at. It wasn't there
Ah,
in the one frame. It was there in one frame. The next frame, it had gone. So
is
it's
that
interesting.
the photo you sent me of the golden flying light being?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
it. Yes, I've had more a bit like that, so a bit more flame-like since then as well.
yeah, because it's interesting as well. Another interesting thing. One of my
It's all
favorite
interesting.
words.
Fascinating.
I was saying amazing a lot the other. I listen back to these interviews. I think, oh, Claire, I'm trying not to go and So if I'm being quiet, it's because I'm listening and trying not to vocalize anything because it's really
Yeah,
annoying.
it's all right.
Yeah. So what was I talking about? Yeah. So the golden light being, oh, I forgot what I was going to say now. What was I talking about? What would,
We were talking about disappearing in one frame and disappearing in the next.
yes. With digital photography, that I mean, I had my first digital camera back in 2001-ish, I think.
Hmm.
With digital photography, that's the and advancing photography, like you say, you can go through frames on your iPhone. I don't
Yeah,
think I have that ability on my phone. We're capturing things that, oh, we're about to finish in 5 minutes. We're capturing things that we wouldn't normally see. So,
yeah,
like a previous guest I've just spoken to, who captured a being on her video camera that they didn't see with their eyes. So it
yeah.
is almost like they move really, really quickly,
Yes,
faster
I've
than
had quite a lot of that. Yeah,
we're able to see. So they're all
yeah.
around us, but we don't see them because of the way that we see.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots more out there just waiting for us to discover.
Yes, there is. Oh, it's been so wonderful to chat with you this morning,
It's been lovely to share my
Lorraine.
story. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for inviting me.
There's probably a lot more that we could talk about. Getting
I'm
short on
sure there
time,
is.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to talk with you a bit more another time.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time this morning. Really
That's
lovely to
okay.
chat.
It's lovely to
And
chat too.
have a really wonderful day.
Thank you.
And yeah, take care.
And you. Thanks for
Okay,
having me on.
bye
Bye.
for now.
Bye.
I'll just stop.